This is Dark Matters Radio.
In the last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, welcome back to another brand new episode of Dark Matters Radio. I am your host. My name is Don Ecker. And by the way, I start out here in sunny Southern California, where I take that signal and, honest to Pete, I throw it all the way back to New York State, across the fruited plain, and they catch it up and send it out to the world, and we are all here together. Boy, I got a good show tonight, but before I go to the guest, have you ever in any of your lives seen a crazier time than is going on right now? Now, I got to tell you, I grew up, went to high school and then college in the 60s, and it was no cakewalk. It was certainly no cakewalk, and there was lots of crazy going on, but never in my life would I have believed the bullshit that's going on now. And I fear it's only going to get shittier before the year is out, and maybe even into the new year. But I got to say this, I am going to be so glad when this stinking 2020 is finally over with. As a matter of fact, my wife and I usually get a bottle of sparkling wine for the new year. We may get 4 this year. And now, with that being said, my guest tonight is a friend, somebody that I've known for many, many, many years, and he's been on DMR before a number of months ago, Mr. Anthony Kimery. Tony was one of the first shows where we kicked this COVID-19 virus around, and he was giving everybody a lowdown of what he thought was likely in the offing. I got to say that at that time, I was somewhat skeptical, but I did not then realize the fear merchants that jumped on the tail of this beast and have been riding it for every bloody thing it's worth. Now, where I live here in California, we are still in the lockdown part. Now, they have the state sectioned off. As a matter of fact, a good buddy of mine, Mr. Mark Center, whom you all know from our previous Saturday shows. Mark is an absolutely rabid moviegoer, and he's been crying for months. Oh, my God, I can't go to the movies. Well, he did. He went down towards San Diego, where they have it open down there, but not here in the San Fernando Valley where I reside. So I didn't know what to tell him. But with that being said, Tony, it is a distinct pleasure, my friend, to have you back. How in the heck have you been?
Don, it's good to be back. It's great to be back on. I'm always glad to be on this show.
Damn right. You should be.
I am. I'm honored. I'm privileged. I'm going to have you on my show. I'm going to have you on my show very soon.
Well, now, I was going to tell everybody. Now, you kind of beat me to the punch. But the last time Tony was on, he was talking about his new national Homeland Security and other items of interest website that he was in the process then of launching. Tony, tell me if I screw this up. IntelliScopeX, is that close to how you say it? I know how you spell it, but was that close?
Yeah, we call it IntelliScopes. Yeah.
IntelliScopes. Okay. All right. And we're going to, as a matter of fact, I put that up on the Dark Matters Radio fan page. But along with that website, Tony does a weekly broadcast on Sundays. Usually it's hitting the topics, and with the guests that you have on or you interview for your show, Tony, is usually what you hit on, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're the top experts in the field. In fact, last Sunday, although I couldn't be on because of this emergency that I earlier told you about, was Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, and he was on last week. But we've had on the leading experts in their fields, whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's terrorism, counterterrorism, pandemic, COVID, public preparedness. We've had the top experts on because I've known these people for years.
Well, speaking of COVID, now the last show you were on with me, you were basically breaking it down for the audience as you saw this thing barreling down the highway toward us. Let's hit the COVID topic for a while. Now, this past week, and I got to say that I suspected this, but Fox's television network broadcaster Tucker Carlson had a Chinese virologist scientist that had escaped the People's Republic. She's over here now somewhere in the United States, and she had a shocking appearance on his program talking about she had basically chased this COVID virus down, and she basically pinpointed it in the Wuhan labs. And she said it was her belief that the Chinese government or the military, whomever, because this is allegedly a Chinese military virus, was deliberately released. I'm sure you're familiar with all this, correct?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the Chinese virologist, Dr. Li Mingyan.
Yeah, I wasn't going to try to pronounce her name, but yes. And that created quite a bit of stir in some quarters, didn't it?
It did, but this theory has been around for many, many months.
It has, but nobody's been really talking about it out front.
Well, actually, there have been some places that have talked about it quite a bit. But there's really no... her claims just aren't justified by the scientific evidence, in my opinion. The vast majority of scientists who have studied the coronavirus agree that it originated naturally and spread to humans from animal species such as a bat. Viruses, their reservoir comes from animals.
Well, according to her, Tony, let me pop in here for just a sec, that this virus would be impossible to come from nature because various aspects of it seem to be taken from different organisms. Now, I'm just going by what I heard her say on the Carlson show. I am certainly no scientist. I am no virologist. But according to her, that's what would make this thing impossible, that it had to be artificially created.
Yes, I know exactly what she's talked about. She's been talking about this for a long time, as have other people, but the genomic sequencing of the virus, and it's mutated a number of times. So we've got a number of various genomic sequences of this virus down pat. And I just don't see it. You know, I studied 2 years, virtually getting a master's degree in virology and infectious diseases from the late, great Dr. Graham Laver. And I just don't see it. Now, it is possible that laboratory, as does our USAMRIID here, they experiment with viruses. They try to mutate them to see, how they could possibly become more virulent, so that they can have that data on hand in case there is a mutation, and they can use that data to help make a vaccine. But from all of the experts I've talked to, and they're some of the leading virologists in the world, they just don't see that the sequences suggesting a likely single recent emergence of this virus from an animal reservoir that has probably been in the animal kingdom all along, and it just mutated and got out, just like influenza. The doctor I studied under, Dr. Graham Laver, he was the first scientist, virologist, to determine that influenza originated in migratory birds. He was the first, along with his colleague, to come up with more and better influenza vaccines. He also came up with the data to manufacture the antivirals for influenza, Tamiflu, and Relenza. So I'm basing what I know based on fact and science, and I just don't. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Well, at the very beginning of December of last year, I was elected to a board of directors here in the area for our homeowners association. And I was at a meeting, and I got to tell you, I get my flu vaccinations every year, and I've done so for, oh golly, going on over 30 years. I get a flu shot every year. And I got done with that meeting, and I came home, and about 2:30 roughly in the morning, and it was December the 2nd. I couldn't forget the damn date. I woke up at 2:30 or so, and I was violently ill. I projectile vomited, and when I got done doing that, I had to claw my way into the bathroom, and I was affected with just really bad diarrhea. Now, by the way, the vomiting ceased after about 3 days, but as far as the diarrhea, that went on for over 2 weeks. Now, after I got through the vomiting, I felt perfectly fine with the exception of the problem with diarrhea. Now, later, I talked to my wife about it, and I said, I wonder if, because by this time, this was like in February, I said, I wonder if that was an early case of COVID, because as we discovered, of course, California has been a gateway for travelers coming from mainland China forever. And they had been flying into L.A., they had been flying into San Francisco months and months previous to this time period. And apparently, we found out that many of them had been coming over here after being exposed to COVID. So COVID was in California long before anybody realized it. Now,
absolutely. In fact, the COVID virus that first entered the United States, I believe it was a gentleman in Seattle, it was a mutation that came from Europe. It was not the original strain of corona or SARS-CoV-2, which is what causes COVID-19. They originated in China. The original virus that came into the United States was a mutation that came from Europe.
Right, I had heard that, but out here, I mean, you know, the Asian travel populace that have been coming and going for a long time. Now, I got to say, I've in the past, but it's been a long time. I have gotten the regular influenza a couple of times. And was really ill. Now, at first with this, I was very ill, but after a couple of days, 3 days, I began feeling a lot better. Now, in your opinion, Tony, because you've studied this, for God's sake, how truly serious and lethal, in your opinion, is this virus? And is it, in your opinion, once again, is it correct to have everything locked down as tightly as it is, especially in the blue states, in New York, in California, in Washington State, in Oregon? It just strikes me as a little, a little odd. I mean, after all this time, 6 months now, we've been dealing with this. And the figures, by all accounts, of people passing from this, and usually anyway, the younger populace may show, you know, COVID in their system, but they haven't been getting ill. It's usually the people with pre-existing conditions that end up on the short end.
Actually, that's not true anymore. A lot of adolescents, even toddlers and babies, are getting extremely ill from COVID. We don't know whether it's due to mutation or what, or just that the numbers are increasing and more children, adolescents, and babies or kids are being exposed to it. But you know,
I haven't heard about that on the news.
Well, there's not a lot out there on the news about it. That's why we have telescopes, and we've got a lot of reports that we're preparing on this, and it's all based on science. It's all based on peer-reviewed science. That it's very serious. People can go to our podcast page and just scroll down and listen and look at you know, some of the guests we've had on talking about it, and I know what they're talking about. It's very scary. Right now, the mortality rate in the United States is 3%, and it's been hovering between about 5 to 2.5%. As of today, it's 2.96%, almost 3%. Case fatality rate, and I'm sure right now we're well over 200,000 dead, because this morning it was 197,682, and the total number of infected was pretty close to 6.7 million, compared to a little over 30 million nationwide, with 946, getting close to 1 million dead worldwide, with a case fatality rate of 3.13%. And Canada is even worse. Of course, it may be because it's a smaller country. Their population is packed closer. Even though they've had 140, they now have 142,879 cases, which is up 1,027 or 0.72% since yesterday. They've had a total death load of 9,249, which gives their case fatality rate 6.47%. It's a deadly virus, and when people say that it's less lethal or deadly than seasonal influenza, I'll just be honest. They don't know what they're talking about. If you actually get into the statistics and the real data that a certain agency within Department of Health and Human Services puts out, of course, CDC is also under HHS. The actual mortality rate, yearly mortality rate from seasonal influenza is actually between 1,400 and 14,000, not the 35 to 65,000 that most people talk about, or the numbers that you hear.
Well, speaking about numbers, now that brings up something else that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, there have been in recent weeks and months a number of physicians that have come forward and have claimed that they were pressured to mark COVID on death certificates, that although the individual in question may have had the virus in their system, if they died even from other causes, they were pressured to put COVID on the death certificate. Now, I know you must be aware of these allegations, and a lot of people have been intentionally silenced, especially by big tech, like YouTube, like Facebook, Twitter, when people have come forward with another view on this, even physicians. And I got to tell you, a lot of that has made me very skeptical about that. How do you react to that, Tony?
I have access, a partial security clearance, reinstated access to Homeland Security's digital library, as well as a lot of other data. And some of our contributors are the best in the nation. Dr. Peter Margella, Tim Stevens, Connie Potter. I don't see it. I've talked to a number of physicians, virologists, epidemiologists around the country, and they have too, because they're plugged in.
So how do you account for these doctors that have come forward and said we are being pressured?
Well, I haven't seen them produce any evidence to show that they have, other than their claims. I have not seen anything written down. I've talked to more doctors and virologists, epidemiologists who say just the opposite than I have heard from these people saying differently. Why? I don't know.
Would you agree that a lot of politics have gotten pushed into this?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of politics has gotten pushed into it. But it's got, and in my opinion, from my point of view, having almost had a master's in virology and being in pandemic or preparedness issues and health crisis issues for a long time, I don't see it. I don't see it. Yes, there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but you get into conspiracy theories, and some of those you can get into psychological reasons why. But the numbers and the data speak for themselves, and there's a lot of data out there. It's just that there's so much of it, and then there have been studies of multitudes of studies in one study, and they say something different. And I have to go by science and fact, as opposed to innuendo and allegations and assertions.
Well, living out here in California, And I have witnessed it right here in the area. For example, churches being threatened with legal action because they were holding services, but yet protests and even rioters, well, that's just people voicing their First Amendment rights. And I got to tell you, that kind of ticked me off. On the one hand, they are refusing people access to their personal churches. But on the other hand, a big mob of people, the majority of them not wearing masks, they're not keeping a social distance of 6 feet, have been out there raising hell. Now, does that make sense? And once again, I think that boils down to a political agenda.
On that point, I have to agree with you. It does boil down to a political agenda. There should be no confined interactions going on in an area where there is an uptick or is considered a hot zone, where there is an upsurge in daily infections. The Sturgis event, we've already been able to track back cases from around the country to the Sturgis event. We'll be publishing that data very soon.
Okay, hold that thought, Tony. Excuse me. We'll pick up with Sturgis when we come back, but we just hit our first break. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, my guest, longtime gentleman, friend of mine for, well, a long time, is joining us again. Mr. Tony Kimery and telescopes. We're going to be talking a lot more about that. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard. Available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of 1/4-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
And we're back with my guest, Mr. Tony Kimery. Tony, you were talking about the Sturgis motorcycle rally before we had to go to break.
Yes, I don't have the data right here at hand, but there was a spike because this was like something like 400,000 people that came in from all across America, including rural America. So now we're seeing a lot of spikes in rural America, but at least 3 outbreaks around the country have been tied directly back to specific bars and restaurants at Sturgis at about the same time we expected at any of these events, whether it's a riot or whether it's a mass crowd. There's going to be somebody who's infected. We know that just because of the numbers of infections that we're seeing from testing. So it's inevitable that somebody's going to have it, they're going to spread it on, and it's going to go back somewhere else. The R0 factor, which is the number of people one person infected can affect, is about 3.2.
Well, so, where I'm at here in California, you cannot travel anywhere going in any business or anything like that unless you're wearing a mask. Okay. It's a mandatory thing. Everybody must wear a mask. Now, one of the first things I did several months ago when this really began to heat up, I ordered masks from Amazon. We got them, and we use them when we're out, but it's kind of funny because right on the box the mask came in said that they are not good for weeding out, these viruses and kind of thing, that you might pick up when you're out in the wild, so to speak. Now, with that being said, what the hell good are they?
Well, let me explain it. Masks do work, but you have to understand how they work and in what kind of an environment. If you're out in the open, outside, and you're not around a lot of people, the viral particulates that anybody is giving out is going to be dispersed naturally by the atmosphere. And if you do take any, it's going to be what's called a low viral load. When you're around somebody or in an enclosed space and it's circulating around, you're going to intake a much higher viral load, which will overwhelm your immune system. But when you're wearing a mask, the best thing to do is, before you touch your mask and rearrange it or whatever, always keep it over your nose and mouth. Don't pull it down. But whenever you touch your mask, first disinfect your hands. Then touch your mask or rearrange it or whatever you've got to do, and then disinfect your hands again. That is the best way. Now, these masks, whether surgical or whether N95 or N100s, they do work. But you have to take that kind of precaution. Disinfect your hand before touching your mask and after, and maybe even spray your mask. Because viral particulates, it all depends on the viral load. The more viral particulates you take in, the higher chance you have of your immune system being overwhelmed. And that's particularly in closed spaces or being around somebody who's infectious for 15 to 20 minutes.
The big question, Will copious amounts of tequila or vodka help?
Well, I think I found the cure the other day. I found a six-pack of Corona next to virus vodka. Literally, that's what it's called, virus vodka. And I thought, well, that must be the answer right there.
Oh, God.
Sometimes you got to laugh about it, even though it is dire. I mean, globally, for instance, we've exceeded more than 30 million cases worldwide. The last progression of 1 million new cases took only 3 days, demonstrating that the virus continues to accelerate extremely rapidly with no signs of slowing down. There were also 5,541 new coronavirus deaths reported to the World Health Organization just over the past 24 hours, bringing the global death toll to at least 964,000. So we're rapidly closing in on the threshold.
That's still a far cry from a century ago, just a titch over a century ago, with the so-called Spanish flu that was a worldwide epidemic with over 50, well, it's still up in dispute, anywhere between 50 to 100 million deaths worldwide. But
actually, it was closer to 150 million.
Well, there you go. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that we're still dealing with that flu now, a century later. It's our typical yearly influenza, just a different strain, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, how many people were aware that the Spanish flu epidemic of a century ago, well, 1918, 1919, is still with us today?
Yeah, it actually lasted 3 years. It went through 1920, and it went through 3 waves. The second wave of which was devastating, and of course, it follows the vectors of human movement. Back then, it was aircraft and ships. Today, it's highways, cars, and airplanes. And you can even plot these things on maps showing clusters of outbreaks along interstates and the routes that people travel. That's the vector of how it gets around. People also forget that in 1968 we had the Hong Kong flu, which killed around 100,000 in the United States. And we actually had lockdowns in certain places in the United States then. That was the year of Woodstock. But it mostly impacted people over 65 with real serious comorbidity factors. That's why young people weren't impacted as much during the 68 Hong Kong flu.
Well, there was another strain, if I recall I'm digging deep into the dusty corners of my memory, but in the mid-70s, around 75, 76, 77, a swine flu scare. And I remember going out and getting a vaccination for that. They were really pushing that hard at the time.
Yeah, I don't recall the name of that. The last one that was really serious was the Hong Kong flu. And then, of course, in the mid-2000s, we had H5N1, but it did not become human transmissible except in 3 very isolated cases within families. If it had become human transmissible, which we were scared to death that it would, it has a mortality rate of around 65%. And then the next one we had was H1N1, which was a pandemic, but it wasn't as contagious. People weren't as symptomatic for 2 to 14, even up to 27 days. It acted like a natural virus. Of course, that was an influenza virus. This is a coronavirus. It's much different. Every virus is different. It has its own genetics, its own genomics, and its own capabilities of mutating and adapting based on its life cycle. And just how it operates.
One brief ray of light, if we are to believe it, is the breakneck speed that various organizations are doing now to come up with a vaccine. And there's been a lot of chatter, Tony, that a vaccine may very well be in our close future offing. What do you know about that, and what do you think about that?
I think that there possibly could be a vaccine early or sometime after next year. I do not see one by the end of the year. Most vaccines for any virus takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years, sometimes 4 years to develop. Now, true, our science and our technology has advanced, but you're still dealing with basically the same thing as genetic engineering and trying to find a way of getting the live virus down to a level where it's basically an adjunct. So it provides an antibody, but not the sickness. I don't think we're going to have one until after the first of the year. And all of that they're going to have to go to all of those on the front lines, the first responders, hospital workers, police, EMS, critical infrastructure. I don't think we're going to see a vaccine at the levels needed for the general population until sometime late next year. Like I said in the beginning, we're probably going to see maybe 10 to 20 million doses. That's if the U.S. gets there first.
Well, there's been some chatter about that too, which would swing right down your highway with various groups in the People's Republic of China and even in Russia trying to hack into our databases, our virus databases for research. Have you covered that?
We have covered that. And in fact, we've got a large in-depth article coming out about that. We've got China, we've got Iran, and we've got North Korea that are the major hackers into the United States. In fact, just over the last 3 days, there have been 3 unsealed indictments against Iranian hackers for computer intrusions, including into U.S. satellite companies.
Well, now they were hit earlier in the year. We were getting news reports. They were hit pretty hard. Is that correct?
These are recent. These are unsealed indictments.
No. I'm talking about the epidemic in Iran. That they had a lot of coronavirus fatalities and a lot of infections.
They did, and they still do. And a lot of it has to, I'm not being prejudicial or anything like that, but a lot of it has to do with their culture. Just like it has to, most viruses come from cultures that are around animals, all kinds of animals a lot. That's why we see viruses coming out of Southeast Asia, China, parts of Africa, because animals are the reservoir for viruses.
So in other words, things like goats, sheep, horses, pigs. Of course, you wouldn't find pigs in a country like Iran because of their religious prohibition, but those are the kind of animals that are carriers?
Yeah, MERS, which is a coronavirus, the Middle East respiratory syndrome, comes from camels. Most of viruses, like influenza, it originated and is still carried by migratory birds, pigs, monkeys, bats, various kinds of other animals, the civet cat, which is very popular in China and Southeast Asia. It's a lot of it has to do with the culture, unfortunately. And I'm not disparaging the culture. I'm just saying that's where the reservoirs of these viruses reside, and eventually, because their nature is to adapt and to reproduce, they will eventually jump species and become human transmissible.
Now, here is something else, Tony, and I'm very interested in your response to this. Now, one of the great center of contention about the coronavirus, about COVID-19, the Wuhan virus, the China virus, whatever you want to call it. And let me see now, suddenly I'm not sure on my pronunciation. The chloroquine, the
hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine, yes. Now, you've got a lot of people around the globe saying that this stuff works. And then you have a strong contingent in this country. Even physicians have been banned from Facebook or from Twitter or from YouTube because they've touted the benefits of hydroxychloroquine. Where do you come down on this issue?
I have access to a lot of current science, almost on a daily basis, including peer-reviewed studies that look at a lot of studies and draw conclusions. I have seen no study that shows that hydroxychloroquine, even if you're taking it with zinc or erythromycin, actually has a beneficial effect. I just haven't seen it. And most of the authorities I know that work with this, they say the same thing. And I have to base my conclusions on the science, the good science, the accurate science, not science that is put out there before it's been peer reviewed, or pre-print.
Well, the FDA, okay, the FDA gave this a clean sheet many decades ago. They use it to treat
malaria.
Malaria, sure. And
it's been around for a long time.
So,
but it also has very serious side effects, and it also has very serious contraindications for certain people. Let's say people with heart disease, coronary artery disease, epileptics, if you're susceptible to seizures. It can have very serious consequences. Let's say you're a diabetic and you have COVID to an extent that you require being taken to the hospital, but at the same time, you're having an insulin blockage attack. And there's nobody there you can't talk, and there's no family there to tell the doctor what your typical symptoms of insulin shock or insulin lack of insulin is. So he has to know that information in order to stabilize you and to get you to a point where you're stabilized. And there's a lot of other serious side effects. There's dozens and dozens of drugs that you cannot take with hydroxychloroquine. So when you hear people say that it is absolutely safe, it is not.
Okay. All right. Well, I was not aware. Was not aware.
Most people aren't.
So,
you can just you go to the Mayo Clinic, look it up, and see what all the contraindications are, and there are plenty of them. And
they probably won't let you in though without a mask, right?
No, you can find this information on the Mayo Clinic their website.
I'm kidding. I was kidding, Tony. I was just kidding. Okay, now we are getting close to the top of the first hour, and I want to start talking about your website and about what you folks are doing there. First off, I guess we should start at the beginning. What caused you to want to get this thing up and running, Tony?
Well, I've been a journalist on and off. I spent 7 years in counterintelligence in Washington. Then I was editor-in-chief of Homeland Security Today magazine for 14 years, from 2004 to 2017, when it finally went under because of a certain administration's budget cuts to DHS, the Department of Defense, and sequestration, which has a negative impact on your advertising when you're completely advertising revenue-driven. And then my wife died, and I decided I needed to take a break. But I came back out. I still had my name recognition within the community, my reputation, and decided that there's nothing out there like it, doing what we're trying to do. Brought on all of my old colleagues and collaborators. Most of them aren't journalists. These are professionals. I really don't like using journalists. I want professionals who know what they're talking about, because they're talking to their peers. And that's why we created Intelliscopes, which is spelled INTELLISCOPX.com. It's unflinching, but it's nonpartisan and unbiased. I mean, we do deep dive, in-depth stories, as well as breaking news. We've got a lot of catching up to do this week because of an emergency I had this week, which I talked to you about earlier. Some of the content is premium content, which means you have to pay for it. Most of those are really long-form, in-depth articles, for 99 cents or $1.99. Then we have time passes, 99 cents for an hour. I think it's $2.99 for 24 hours, $3.99 for a week, and the monthly subscription for all the content is $24.95, and then we have a special offer going through September 20th. One-time payment of $34.95, I believe it is, for an entire year. There's a lot of free content, but a lot of the premium content, we have to charge for until we get our numbers up, so we can start then focusing on more advertising. It's a micropayment process that a lot of digital publishers are going to these days. It provides people many different methodologies for looking at the content for very cheap prices and seeing, well, do I want to subscribe or not?
Well, hey, I can tell everybody from our standpoint, my wife and mine, that publishing is a tough racket. It can be hard. Okay. And of course, the advertising is what saves you, but then you also have to be very discriminating about that. So yeah, it's a rough one.
It is. So we're trying to strike a balance with this new micropayment capability. Like I think the San Francisco Chronicle is using it. Salon's using it. There's a lot of digital media that are using this type of micro processing. Where you just buy an individual article. In fact, some of them, they can be 99 cents or $1.99 for a particular article, and you don't have to pay until you actually reach $5. Then you're required to register and pay. Some are pay now, but with the time passes and subscriptions, you get all the content immediately for whatever you've decided to choose.
In your opinion, right now, up to this date, what is your hardest hitting article, and do you foresee down the road? Because hey, let's be real freaking honest, okay? Let's be very honest. The kind of stuff that you're doing can sometimes make people butthurt, all right? And depending upon what it is, sometimes you can look for blowback. Have you had to deal with that as of this point? And in your opinion, what is the most touchy thing that you've dealt with so far, Tony?
Actually, we've got nothing but accolades. We've got no negative feedback at all. Like I said, we're unbiased, nonpartisan, but we do tell it like it is. It's unflinching, it's edgy. We use dynamic photographs, so it's very eye appealing. We did a story, or Dr. Godfrey Garner did a story on the negotiation with the Taliban and why that was a bad idea. And I did a companion story that went with it about the Taliban 5 that we negotiated. 5 of the most hardened Taliban leaders that were in Gitmo who should have never been released to begin with. And these were the Taliban leaders that we were negotiating with.
Yeah, yeah.
And it goes into great detail about all of their backgrounds based on the classified documents that were released about each one of them by I forgot what the commission is called that does those reports on each one. And each one said they should not be released.
Well, let's pick up there when we come back, because we're at the top of the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight, Mr. Anthony Kimery. IntelliScopes is his site. We're talking about some of the content that he is currently offering the public, and we're gonna take a look down the road to see where else they might possibly go. This is Dark Matters Radio. Dark Matters Radio is brought to you exclusively by KGRA Radio, your contact point to areas weirder. We'll be back. Stick around.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 945-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. That's 945-882-7221. Or go to the website angioprim.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. handymanformula.com. Have a great day.
Permanent industrial glue impossible to remove? Not anymore, because Handyman Formula by D-Bond is a patented chemical adhesive remover. It's used in the building and home maintenance industry, but now it's available for your home use, for your DIY projects. Unglue stickers, silicone rubber, labels, price tags, flex tape, weather stripping, carpet glue, wood glue, liquid nails, even 3M 5200. And it dissolves graffiti. Yeah, graffiti. Handyman Formula by D-Bond works, and it's safe to use on most surfaces. No need to call a professional. Don't get out the pliers and blowtorch. Just apply a little Handyman Formula by D-Bond and wait 90 seconds, then quickly and easily pull the items apart. Get unstuck. Visit dbondhandymanformula.com. That's dbondhandymanformula.com or call 561-575-4200. Handyman Formula by D-Bond.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
And we're back for hour number 2 with Mr. Tony Kimery. Tony, before we had to go to break, we were talking, or you were talking about negotiating with the Taliban. Now, these guys that you were just referencing were released from Guantanamo by the Obama administration. Now, I just about bounced off the freaking ceiling when he did that, because anybody with a half ounce of gray matter between their ears, all right, that weren't doing marijuana edibles knew that these guys were going to go right back into the battlefield. What the hell was the deal with that?
Well, certainly the DOD did not want to do it. So it came down from the top, and look who they handed 5 Taliban leaders over to. Burgal, who was later convicted for and sentenced for going AWOL, leaving his post.
He deserted.
He deserted, yeah. And so we traded 5 of the worst Taliban leaders, one of whom actually was in control pre 9/11 of the province in Afghanistan where Al Qaeda operated and had their training facilities.
Those guys had to be horse laughing at us.
Oh, I'm sure they were. I think we had, I think it was Claire Lopez, a career CIA officer, on who talked about. It's a podcast on the website. She went into great detail about that whole situation. And then Dr. Godfrey Garner, who retired from 20th Special Forces Group, who did 6 tours in Afghanistan, and also runs the Center for Counterterrorism Studies at Mississippi College, on which I'm a member of the advisory board, wrote a brilliant piece about, this isn't going to last. And then I wrote the companion piece about the 5, we call the Taliban 5, that were released, and just who they are.
We still don't get it, even though it's been 19 years since the 9/11 attacks. We still, as a people, don't get it. And I go to bed at night sometimes and I wonder about that. What the hell is it? A few months ago, and I believe I've mentioned this before, I woke up one morning like I do every morning, came out to the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down, was looking at my cell phone at the news feeds, and Vicky came out, sat down, and we were talking about the latest outrage of the day, whatever it happened to be at that time. And I looked at her and I jokingly said, it's as if we went to bed one night, something happened, maybe it's the Hadron Collider out of Europe, but we suddenly slipped into another dimension. And I was joking, but later I started to think about that. My God, I think we did slip into another dimension. It looks pretty much the same, but everything is different, Tony.
Well, quantum entanglement. Maybe we are moving in and out of parallel universes. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it's nuts. And I know most of the people, virologists and epidemiologists and the scientists, that that we've all known that there was going to be another pandemic, but we can't imagine that it's happening like it is. That there's the politics involved, there's the reaction to it.
Well, the politics, I think, boiled down very simply to this being an election year. And I have never in my life seen one as contentious as this. I just haven't.
No, I haven't either. And I was in Washington 17 years, from Reagan all the way through Clinton, and then George H.W. Bush. So, I 17 years, and then the time I spent in counterintelligence, you see a lot. But I never saw quite this kind of contentiousness back during that time. That whole 17-year period, I just don't recall seeing much like it. Yeah, there were a lot of protests going on, a lot of things here and there, but nothing like this.
Well, now, one thing this show is known for is talking about the unusual, the unfathomable, weird things, strange objects flying through the sky. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about UFOs, UAPs, aerial phenomena, etc. ad nauseum. Now, with that being said, all those years that you were banging around in Washington and then in counterintelligence, I was on the UFO path, okay, beating my head into a wall every day from the time I got up until I went to bed. Now, during that time, I interfaced with the Pentagon. I interfaced with known and unknown intelligence assets. I dealt with professional skeptics, people like Phil Klass from Aviation Week Space Technology.
I know who he is.
Yeah, people like Dr. Jim Oberg. I debated on Larry King Live on that topic that you and I first connected on, STS-48. Now, with that being said, I never believed in my life, just like I don't believe today what I'm witnessing is even real. I never believed at that time that any crack would surface in the UFO arena. But yet, wait, there's more. Just like the Ginzu Knives commercial, Tony. 3 years ago, come December, Senator Harry Reid, leaving the Senate, Democrat from the state of Nevada, the great state of Nevada, holds a presser in which he talks about securing millions and millions of dollars to investigate aerial phenomena. He talks about it publicly. Suddenly, there was a huge crack in the dam. Now, on the heels of that came a show called Unidentified, featuring people like Christopher Mellon, from former Undersecretary of State for Intelligence, Dr. Hal Puthoff, formerly of the CIA, one of the chief engineers from Lockheed Skunk Works, etc., etc. And my God, they were talking about this in a serious way. And also, the first year especially, there was a constant drumbeat that this could be a potential threat. This could threaten national security. Now, I realize this is being pumped out to the great unwashed masses. That's people like you and I. But You know, I knocked around intelligence when I was in the Army, and you've certainly knocked around intelligence. And I put on my thinking hat, and I thought, you know what? The only thing that really makes sense to me, considering the caliber of some of these people, are number one, they're doing a somebody is doing a long term disinformation program on this for God only knows what purpose, or there's a possibility that they have an inkling that something very bad is coming down our way, and this is a soft disclosure. Now, knowing you, Tony, I know that you've thought about this, that this is a topic that interests you. Where do you fall down on this?
We talked, like I explained once before. This, to me, given some of the operations that we did, seems, it smacks of what we used to call covert, overt operations. That you let slip out stuff, and then you, like the videos, and say, well, we don't know what they are, and you kind of shove them off. We call them unidentified aerial phenomenon. Then they come out later and said, yes, we've declassified them. They were classified. We put them out, and you start spreading some other things. To me, it reeks of a classic disinformation campaign against our adversaries, to let them know, look, this is the kind of technology we've got. If you want to start a shooting war, go ahead. And I think it's aimed at Russia, China, North Korea, maybe Iran. That's my take on it. But, that's my take because I come from it at that direction.
Well, that's sure as hell plausible.
And to me, that's what's happening. I do know that the Aurora program, it used to be called, did exist because I knew one of the vice presidents of Lockheed and, he was at Lockheed, Boeing, and Martin Marietta worked on the avionics and radar. So this thing's got to, I don't know how long ago that was. So this thing's got to be in its 5th, 6th, 7th generation. And I think they're letting these things be seen, but yet they're, denying it openly, saying, well, we don't know what they are. We don't know what they are, but we have photographed them. These are classified videos that we have declassified. And I think it's just a covert, overt way of telling our adversaries, this is what we've got. I mean,
Well,
I've seen things like this happen during other types of disinformation campaigns. I mean, not to this level, but they've used the same tactics, and I was involved in some of those.
Now, it's
not with unidentified aerial phenomena, but other situations.
Right. Now, it's certainly no secret any longer that something extraordinary happened off the coast of California down near Mexico with these objects that received the nickname of Tic Tacs. And one of the pilots, Commander Fravor, has been interviewed a number of times. One of the radar technicians on their electronic warfare ship has gone public, talking about following these things that were coming from great heights all the way down to the ocean surface, stopping abruptly on a dime, that our F-18s had chased them and they just left them in the dust, so to speak. So, yeah, that I think galvanized a hell of a lot of people. And then it also happened on the Atlantic coast off of Delaware, Maryland. There have been some incidents where these things blew through a formation of American fighter aircraft that were carrier launched, which, hey, I mean, that could be pretty damn dangerous. If one of those objects would have impacted an aircraft, we would have had a dead pilot on our hands. So you still think it's more than likely that this technology is ours, Tony?
I still do. I think the TikToks. Right. I think they're drones. I don't think that these are piloted aircraft at all.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Now, under whose auspices would they be? The Civilian Aerospace Corporation that would have by necessity developed them and is flying them, or would they be under military control? Because if they were under military control and there were almost some near mid-air collisions with these things, that could have ended up with some dead servicemen. And then, oh boy, would there be red faces, huh?
Yeah. But I think that is still what was going on, and I think that they were actually using these aircraft that they have very, very, very good control over as a way of seeing how our own pilots, military, respond. That's what I think, and I think it's obviously one of the major aerospace defense contractors and subcontractors have been involved in building these, but they're under the control of the military, and it would be a special access program, code words, special access program.
SAP, yeah. Okay, now I got another question for you in that same ballpark, although it's in a different section of the stadium. Are you familiar with the Dr. Eric Davis, Admiral Thomas Wilson kerfluffle that happened a little over a year ago?
I can't say that I can remember that, no.
Okay, well, let me quickly bring you up to speed. Back in the mid to latter 90s, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth Apollo, was he Apollo? Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo, it wasn't 17, it was the one prior to that. Would that have been Apollo 16, I guess? Boy, it's been almost 50 years, I forget now. But at any rate, he was one of the American astronauts that was on the moon. Came back, and he made a lot of press because on the way back from that lunar mission, he was practicing a test utilizing telepathic techniques in order to project his mind. You're aware of that, right?
You mean mind interface with the actual aircraft?
No, with other human beings. Edgar Mitchell. No. I mean, this is a famous incident.
I probably have read about it, but I need an external hard drive at this point.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
For my mind.
I know what you mean. Well, at any rate, he did. Now, Edgar Mitchell came back and he created it was kind of a new agey type institute. If I'm remembering, it was called the Noetic Institute. If it wasn't, it was close to that. But at any rate, he also had a strong curiosity concerning extraterrestrial life. He was convinced that not only is there extraterrestrial life out there, but that some of it likely came here. Now, among people and of course he was an American hero, he was an astronaut, he had been to the moon. So, I mean, we're not talking about Joe Schmuck there. We're talking about somebody that had a lot of wherewithal, okay, with his name. And he talked to Admiral Thomas Wilson, trying to get Wilson to look into some of these matters from his lofty perch at the Pentagon. Now, Wilson had been the director of the DIA at the time, the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, the military's version of the CIA. Now, Wilson told him he would try to look into it to see if there was actually anything to this UFO business. Well, make a long story short, by all accounts, he did. He's denying it now. But he later was approached by Dr. Eric Davis. Now, Davis had been an employee of Robert Bigelow, had been involved with the Skinwalker Ranch, among other things, had a long and storied career in unusual phenomena. Everybody I've talked to, and I've talked to quite a few people, some with very highly, at one point or another, classified positions in, among other things, aerospace intelligence and what have you. Davis was one of those guys who could get into a room by himself and have a raging argument that everybody heard. He was basically, if you know what I'm talking about, right?
But, I certainly do.
Okay, so at any rate, Edgar Mitchell ended up being given a transcript of an alleged meeting that took place between Wilson and Davis. Now, in this alleged meeting, they met at in the parking lot of EG&G in Las Vegas for roughly an hour. Davis took notes. If this is anywhere close to being correct, I am convinced, because of the detail, that in fact he must have recorded this thing, but where they had a very in-depth conversation about Wilson's attempt to find out what the deal was on UFOs. Now, allegedly, he inadvertently tapped into an SAP project, a special access program, where quote unquote recovered alien technology was being held by an aerospace company out here on the West Coast. And he contacted these people as the director of DIA. They told him he could not be given any information, especially over the telephone, that he would have to come out to the West Coast. So he did. And when he got out there, they took him into a secure vault where he attempted to talk to them about this. They told him that he was not on the bigot list, okay? And
the bigot list.
Yeah. And
yeah, I know all about that.
Okay, all right. Then okay, good. So at any rate, he was not on the bigot list, so they couldn't tell him anything. Thank you for your visit, go home. Now, do I know this happened? I do not. Wilson vehemently denies it, but if it's dealing with the special access program, people don't understand what an SAP designation entails. And that is even an admission that such a program exists is a felony violation. And he would be subject to punitive action, including losing his pay, his rank, his position.
Yeah.
I mean,
it would fall under the Espionage Act, as well as all the non-disclosure agreements that go with the Espionage Act.
So the bottom line is, even if it happened, he could never admit to it, and he would lie about it just to save his own ass. Am I correct?
Yes. I know people who have lied to Congress because they could not reveal classified information in an open setting.
Now, Congress is a whole different ball of wax. but most people really don't have a clue on how this business really works, Tony. Give us a real quick course on what this type of activity is all about.
Well, SAPs can take many different forms, and they all have their own code word. You can have a top secret special compartmented information clearance, but it does not necessarily give you access to everything. You have to have a code word along with the TS/SCI clearance to get into a particular SAP or some code word program, like Gamma, Umbra, Spoke, things like that, which they're known. I'm not revealing anything classified. But it can involve defense systems, whether land, sea, air, and it can also involve intelligence collection methods like signals intelligence or communications intelligence or imagery intelligence, MASINT, measures and signals intelligence. It can go both ways. It can be actual defense systems or intelligence collection methods and sources.
So if there were such a program like this would, and what I'm basically referring to, let us say they did have recovered technology through who knows what means, but they have it. It becomes pretty self-evident that this did not originate on planet Earth. Now, this is just a what if, all right? This would, by necessity, be of the very highest national security, would it not?
Absolutely. It would probably be one of the most guarded SAT programs that there is.
And if that were to be true, and somebody, this is something else that I've gotten into some pretty heated discussions about. If there was genuine concern that somebody was going to spill the beans on a subject like that any sanction could and would be possible to deal with that threat, up and including assassination. Would you agree with that?
It depends on the level of the threat of the disclosure would have on national security. People say that, secrets are hard to keep. Well, I know a lot of secrets that have never been divulged, and I'm not going to. And they've remained secret. Some were very controversial. Some were exposed government abuse, waste, corruption, and they carried a top secret SCI clearance. So there are a lot of secrets that nobody ever knows about. Now you can start putting pieces together about certain things if you know how to do it. For instance, let me just throw this technology out at you. Do you remember Star Trek when they would enter orbit around a planet and Chekhov would say, "Scanning for life forms now, Captain"? Well, the Air Force right now is actually working on developing molecular, cellular, biological signature sensing technology that they can identify you by your biological signature at your molecular and cellular level.
Hey, if you and I were sitting in a park and they had this technology, they could make a determination that my signature is Don Ecker and your signature is Tony Kimery.
Well, yeah, if they had already had your signatures, they could do that. Now, if they didn't, they could simply say that, okay, we know in this area we've got life forms, and they use them to be able to see through areas and ways that they can't traditionally use certain technologies now. But eventually, that's what they're aiming to get to, is to where they can.
So they have a prototype right now, but it's not operational.
Not that I'm aware of, but we did a story on it. That they're working on that right now. The intelligence community of the FBI also has a top secret DNA processing program ran through the Department of Homeland Security. So if your DNA is on anything or has been found anywhere, well, let's say it was a terrorist and they found a fingerprint on an IED. It goes in the database. They can use that DNA, break it down, and discover who their family members potentially could be, so they can track them down or track down people associated with them to get to their target. But they can also use it for other purposes because they have a very huge DNA database. And now, just to practically everybody who is arrested for any kind of an offense, their fingerprints are taken and DNA are taken. And it goes into this one big, huge central database that's operated by the Department of Homeland Security. And they do the processing, but they don't have any idea about who it is or what it is. Only the FBI and the intelligence or certain intelligence community components do.
Buddy, that is Big Brother all over the map, isn't it?
It's technology that's being developed right now.
Yeah, well,
and we've written quite a bit about a lot of this stuff. It's just that most people don't know how to find it. They don't make. I was in pattern recognition and dot connecting. I would look at something and I knew there was a pattern there. Okay, well, I've got to find some of the dots that connect and then go from there. You have to know where to go, what to look for, to be able to put the pieces together. But when you do know how to do that, it's very easy. Of course, you have to, I think, come out of that kind of a background to be able to do it. I don't know that necessarily Joe Blow reporter for some defense publication would really know how to do that. You've got to have a background in this material, this world to know how to do it.
Well, a number of years ago, there was a film that came out starring Tom Cruise, and I believe it was called Minority Report, I think, where Cruise, and the crux of the movie was the powers that be knew when somebody was, or they thought somebody was about to commit a crime. It could be anything. It could be murder, whatever, rob a bank, who knows. But they would go in and arrest them before they had time to carry out the crime.
Right.
Is that possible, Tony? Are we headed that way?
There are some technologies that are being worked on, both by DARPA as well as IARPA.
Well, I've read that there is technology today that was being developed. I can only presume that it's still being refined, where they can actually read a subject's mind or have an idea of what the person or persons are thinking of.
The military has a number of different programs involved in that, because what they want to be able to get to is let's say, for instance, a fighter pilot. They want to be able to combine the mind with the machine, so that the mind is actually working the machine, and being able to drive it and interpret it that way. And there are other military systems that are being designed the same way.
Well, hell, Clint Eastwood did a movie on that 35 or 40 years ago, where he was a former Vietnam pilot that was brought into government service, sent to the USSR to steal.
Yeah, I think it was the Fox Bats or something like that, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Aircraft that all the weapon systems were thought controlled.
Yeah, they are definitely working on that for the Air Force, and they have already succeeded to some degree.
Brave new world.
It is a brave new world. I mean, we have virtual force fields now for tanks and armored personnel carriers.
They could stop a 120 millimeter anti-tank round?
Yeah.
They
Javelin,
could
RPG,
stop it.
They can stop it. It's not completely refined, but the prototype systems that I have seen, they're not far away.
Oh my
And
God! The power requirements of something like that would be stupendous. How could they have a power unit small enough to fit it on an armored vehicle?
I don't know exactly what the power system consists of, but I know that it is not large and it's relatively small. And it's almost obscure. You can't even see it. And I've seen demonstrations.
Well, then it would only be a skip, hop, and jump to have a personal force field unit that a human being could use that would stop weapons.
Right. And they're pretty much to the point now where they have invisibility capability.
Visible light, not electronic.
Visible light, yes.
Well, so what we know about the public at large today, we can advance it, figuratively speaking, 20, 30, 40 years in the future. We're that much far ahead?
I've always estimated that we're probably at least 25, probably 30 years ahead of what is really known. We're aware of, yeah.
Well, let's take another skip, hop, and jump. Now, we're sending a lot of chemical rockets up into the stratosphere and into near-Earth space. A lot of them. I've never really believed that that's the best we can do, Tony. And what am I getting at? And I've talked to a number of physicists. I've talked to a number of scientific, very highly placed scientific people, and have been told a number of times that these individuals believed that, in fact, we do have a quote-unquote secret space program with capabilities that would astound and amaze you. Do you consider that conceivable?
Absolutely, I do. And I believe that the conventional systems and technology that we're seeing are more geared towards commercialism in the future. Floating hotels, going around the world in 30 minutes on one of Musk's starships. I see that technology more being commercialized for a commercial purpose than anything else. While on the other hand, the military already has its own far more advanced capabilities, and they're just letting this other, become commercialized.
So would that explain Trump's Space Force?
To a degree, to a large degree, it would, yes.
Well, I am on a site on Facebook called Disgruntled Veterans. Okay, and there's a lot of there's some serious stuff up there, but a lot of black military style humor also. And I was I was up there today and reading some of that stuff, and someone said, well, how would you get a Purple Heart if you were in the Space Force? And I think I know what the guy was getting at. I'm not absolutely positive, but what, what?
I can give you an analogy.
Sure.
It's like, okay, let's just take the CIA, for example. There are certain awards that, whether you're in the Special Operations Group or you're a clandestine services officer, an operations officer, as opposed to the Intelligence Directorate, which are geek nerds who connect dots, they are given awards. But what they do is they take you to the basement, open the vault, show you the medal, give you cookies and milk, and then lock it back up. There's a lot of medals like that. Yeah, throughout the services, and that's what you get: cookies and milk. You get to look at it, and feel it, and touch it, and then they put it back.
Yeah. Well, I could say something, but it would come out pretty foul, so I'm going to just bite my tongue. Yeah, well, Christian, that's Christians in Action for you. CIA, Christians in Action, absolutely. Okay, so now here we are getting quickly toward the end of 2020. Things are pretty rough and wild out there, Tony. Cities around the country have suffered from large degrees of unrest, arson, even murder. And many of those cities' administrations have failed to take any action whatsoever. Now, in my opinion, this is me, okay, speaking, I think they're doing that out of what they see as political necessity to give no props to the current White House administration. They really don't like that guy. And I think they think the more bad there is, the worse it makes the administration look. Now, you are doing a lot, and you've recently had some people on there on your broadcast and articles and things that have been written that are looking down the road, especially immediately preceding and immediately after the upcoming election. Now, without getting political on either side, do you see it getting better or do you see it getting worse?
I see it getting worse to the point that I think some, at least at regional or local levels, the Insurrection Act will have to be invoked. Because if you see what's going on in some cities, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, clearly it falls under the definition of the Insurrection Act, which means when the local authorities and the police are unable to restore or maintain,
unwilling
to maintain safety and civility and protection for the citizenry, the Insurrection Act can be invoked. We don't have a Sedition Act anymore, but we do have an Insurrection Act, and it's been used many times, actually. The first time Eisenhower used it, old man Bush used it. He invoked it during the Rodney King riots. It's been invoked many times, but it's been invoked on, usually small-scale city or regional levels. And the military has a contingency plan for implementing it on a wide-scale basis. And, for as long as I know, it's been called Operation Garden Plot.
Well, it is to the extent, at least here in California, where I am, right now. Now, in order for a law-abiding, upright citizen in the state of California to purchase a firearm, during normal times, they must undergo a background check. They have to be stamped, certified, etc. And then within several weeks can pick up their purchase. Doesn't matter if it's a rifle, a shotgun, a handgun, it doesn't matter. But right now, there is a waiting period, and record numbers of people have been attempting to buy firearms out here. And there's an extent of a 6-month plus waiting period before you can go and pick up your purchase. I don't know about you, that tells me a hell of a lot. That there are a lot of people that are very nervous.
A lot of people are very nervous, and it shouldn't take that long. I mean, I can go in here and pick out anything I want, and I've got it within 5 minutes. The system that is used is that quick. So I don't know why some places have backlogs. They hate guns out here.
I
know, but it does not take that long for a background, the regular background check to be performed through ATF. It does not take that long. It takes about 5 minutes.
Well, there seems to be.
You're in California, so I understand the situation, and there are other states that are the same way.
Now, I don't know of anybody out here recently that has challenged these things in a court of law, but I would think, ideally speaking, that this could be found very clearly to be a violation of their Second Amendment rights. I don't know about you, but that would seem to make sense to me.
I think that you've got a good point. I think it could be challenged. It was challenged in Washington, D.C. They tried imposing harsh regulatory measures you had to jump through, and then they got that struck down. And there's a few other states that have tried it, and things have gotten struck down. I think there's a great judicial case to be made for what's going on in California or any other state that does that.
Yeah, I would think. Well, look, now I'm checking my clock here. We actually only have a few minutes left in the show, Tony, because, and the other thing is, I was informed by our producer that we had to stop 3 minutes, quicker tonight than we normally do. He has another project that he's involved with. So the bottom line is, with your site and what you've been involved in, what is up and coming? What do you have happening in the next few days, weeks, or even months that you're currently working on now?
A couple of things. We're working on complete lists and breakdowns of all the indictments that have been handed down by the Justice Department against, let's say, Chinese nationals for espionage, other Russians. We're breaking them all. I mean, we're going back years. which nobody has ever done. You might hear of one indictment here and there, but you do not know the extent of it. So these are very deep dive, thorough investigative reports, and those are premium content stories. We've got more counterterrorism and terrorism-related stories coming up. It's just a multitude of things we've got coming up, technology-wise, that you never hear about. It's an amalgamation, but we cover the waterfront, but we don't cover a lot of specific niches on the waterfront. We try to stay focused on very, very specific threats, known and unknown, that are either not reported, underreported, or not even recognized, that we're working on. I mean, that's our mission statement, and that's our goal.
Well, now you also, and I wanted to hit this before we run out of time, you also are doing podcasts now. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have a Sunday night program over the iHeart network called Homeland Security Off the Record. And I bring on leading experts, and then they're post-edited into a podcast format. The commercials are taken out, new intro music is put in, and they go onto our podcast site. Eventually, we will have we have a YouTube channel. It's not activated. We will be doing panel discussions and things like that in the near future as well.
If you had to pick one topic, Tony, that really excites you the most out of all the amalgamation of things you're dealing with, terrorism, homeland unrest, COVID virus, biological weapons, et cetera, what is the one topic that gives you the most juice when you're involved with it?
Well, I'm excited about it all. I've always said I know way too much about too much, and it's either a cursing or a blessing. I'm not sure which. I'm very particular to the intelligence community and what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they do it. We're going to be covering a lot of very interesting counter or terrorism stories up here very soon. I think what scares me the most, and I think any competent person who's been in intelligence to any degree will say that what keeps them up at night is a biological attack.
Well, the morning, buddy, that I wake up and I see zombies stumbling down my lane here, that's going to be a bad morning.
Actually, a dear friend of mine, Sam Faddis, who before he retired was head of the CIA's WMD counterterrorism unit. We did an episode of Joe Rogan's program called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. It was called Bioapocalypse. And we talked about that very thing, including do-it-yourself laboratories, where somebody could actually produce a hybrid designer zombie type virus. No, you're not going to come back from the dead. That's not going to happen. But you could be infected by being bitten or scratched or something like that. It would be that contagious and it would be that quick. But it wouldn't be a George Romero, you just come back to life kind of thing. But there are hybrid viruses like that can be created, like combining a rabies virus with something else.
Well, we're gonna have to save that for another show, Tony. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's all my pleasure, Don. My pleasure.
And this has been great. I want to have you come back. Let me get you a yay or nay right now.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Okay, buddy. That is it for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. We will be back next week. In the meantime, Keep your eyes pointed up, your ear to the ground, and we'll see you then. Good night.